And more now on our breaking news tonight. The Justice Department investigating a potential presidential pardon bribery scheme, according to court documents unsealed today. The pages are partially, and I'll add mostly redacted, as you can see on your screen, and do not reveal a timeline or any names. The government requested last week that the court keep the opinion under seal because it, quote, identifies both individuals and conduct that have not been charged by a grand jury. Joining us now is Professor Austin Sterrett, Associate Provost and Associate Dean at Amherst College and author of Mercy on Trial. Professor, thank you for joining us tonight on NewsNation.
Well, thanks for having me.
Let's start by getting first your reaction to this DOJ investigation. What do we make, or what can we glean from this redacted document and what's going on here?
Well, so far there's not a lot to make or glean. As you said, that document conceals much more than it reveals at this point. The allegation of a bribery in response to or in buying a pardon is, of course, a really serious one, indeed almost unprecedented at the federal level. There have been scandals like this at the state level where a bribe's been paid and pardons have been bought with those bribes. But really, we've not seen anything like this at the federal level, at the presidential level.
Well, if indeed a pardon is corrupt, what happens to that pardon?
Well, Marty, that's a very good and very good question. I think the answer may surprise you. It certainly surprises lots of folks. The validity of a pardon does not depend upon its motivation. Courts have said about pardons, both at the state level and at the federal level, that chief executives can grant pardons for good reason or bad reason or no reason at all. At the state level, what has happened when we've seen these bribery for pardon schemes is that the person taking the bribe is subject to criminal penalties. A governor of Tennessee not too long ago took a bribe in response and gave a pardon. And what the courts did was they upheld the validity of the pardon. So the motive, no matter how corrupt, has not been found in the past to undo the validity of the pardon. Well,
at what point, or I guess the question is, what has to happen next for us to have more information on who may have been involved here, some of the redacted information, the players involved? What's the next step so that we have a little bit more to go on here?
Well, it's really up to the judge now what it is that the judge wants released. It may very well be that what the judge did by authorizing this much of a release is to want to send a signal to the President of the United States, to want to send a signal that the President is being watched and the President and the people that work for him are under some scrutiny. But what we get to know, we're a long way really from knowing who was involved and what was involved and what pardon, if any, were they trying to obtain. So we're really in the dark, but we need to recognize that the presidential pardons really right from the beginning of the Republic have been regularly the source of scandal, not because of the motivation, not because they were bribed, but regularly presidents have given pardons to people that other people thought didn't deserve them. So think of Bill Clinton, who granted a pardon to his half-brother on a drug offense, or President George H.W. Bush that pardoned Caspar Weinberger, who lied in the so-called Iran-Contra affair. So this will not be the first time that presidential pardons have been scandalous. Though, as I said, if it turns out that there was a bribe given in return for a pardon, that will take presidential scandals to really a new and unprecedented height.
Well, and you get at the point of grace and mercy, which was involved with the Founding Fathers in terms of presidential pardons and granting clemency power to presidents. Before I let you go, though, we do know that the government made a request to keep this opinion under seal. What role does that play in all of this? And at what point will we know which agency, which government officials asked to keep this quiet?
Well, again, all of that is really in the purview of the judge. So what it is that the judge wants us to know is what it is that we will end up knowing. I think there's obviously a great public interest, and I mean that just not in the sense that we are all interested, but we should be interested to know whether or not this pardon power, which is a great presidential power, an important presidential power, whether this presidential power, this great and important presidential power, has been bought and paid for. That would be a tremendous blow to the integrity of the legal and political system of the United States.
All right. Well, there is still a lot we don't know, but hopefully in the hours and days to come, Professor, we learn what we need to move forward here. Professor Austin Serrett, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.